Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 389 for June 7th, 2025. Yes, Saturday, June 7th, 2025. We're a day early, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow on a regular scheduled program because this is a special, week that we're having here as we have the Summer Games Fest going on starting back on like Tuesday or Wednesday, I think, with the State of Unreal. But it's gone into high gear now this past Friday and Saturday with a bunch of directs that have been going on. So what we'll be doing these next couple of days, we're kind of split off the directs kind of more or less in half-ish. I think some of them, we might not cover all of them, but the most of them. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of crossover, and I've actually seen a lot of crossover with games and different directs and showcases. So we'll get to those coming up here. So we'll have 6 of the directs tonight. I believe, 6-ish. There's a couple of them that are kind of light on content, but we'll probably still talk about a little bit about them. But before we get to all that, and before we get to the State of Unreal for our first segment, we'll get to Mr. Game Logic. Game, how are you?
Good, man. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Unfortunately, DBQ couldn't be here. He's under the weather, but hopefully he'll be back with us tomorrow. Maybe he can give us a quick rundown of some of his favorites from the last few days. But let's get going with the State of Unreal. And something I think you, Mr. Game Logic, wanted to talk about first, The Witcher 4 demo. I'll do that in quotes.
Yeah, so I'll make this really quick. In fact, I didn't even pull up The Witcher 4 demo because I guess we weren't really planning on talking about it in terms of content.
I think you had other thoughts on it other than just what it was.
Yeah, so I think the big problem with it was so State of Unreal is a show. It's not really a show. It's really a presentation to developers that happens as of recent, I guess, in close conjunction with the week of Summer Games Fest, right? Summer Game Fest, when all of this other stuff is going on, and this is analogous to me to what happened a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, when people suddenly decided to pay attention to the Sony Investors Week for whatever reason. That happens typically like in May, so about a month-ish before Summer Game Fest. Sony has like this week-long presentation of investor talks, and a lot of people in the kind of YouTube, Twitter circuit got hold of that and decided to tune into it. I think it was the same year as the FTC hearing, so all of a sudden, people who are in this circle of discussion of games had started paying attention to things that were outside of that bubble, and they tuned into it, and they rendered a lot of opinions as if it was supposed to be some gaming presentation. And I'm like, you guys do understand that this is an Investors Week call, and like this, like the PlayStation session was not really for you. It was not really for gamers. Some gamers, not all, some tuned into this State of Unreal, The Witcher 4, and saw this trailer and took it as if it was a Summer Game Fest trailer, an E3 trailer. And it's not, right? It's really a show that is analogous to WWDC that Apple does every year, or Google I/O that Google does, or Microsoft Build, right? And it's kind of like, if you're in the journalist like reporting circles, when I was a mobile tech reviewer, I would tune in to Apple's WWDC and Google I/O, WWDC and Google I/O, for like the small scrap of tidbit information that might come out that might have something to do with Android handsets or the iPhone, or Macs or whatever. But really those shows are not really customer facing, consumer facing shows. Neither is this. This show was really about demoing technology that CD Projekt Red is working on with Epic to scale the implementation of Unreal, right? So Epic typically the case in the tech industry when you deploy a technology is you look for people employing your technology at scale, right? People using your technology and applying it to really, really tough problems, because then that helps you in feedback, because you get telemetry and you get lessons learned on people taking your technology to apply it in the most strenuous, right, stress test type of space, right? And so with, machinery control vendors, right, I always interface with control vendors when we are implementing a system that is at much greater scale or requires much tighter tolerance, right, than some of their other use cases where other people employ their technologies, because that information is useful to them to help improve their product. And sometimes, right, based on the licensing agreement, CD Projekt Red might be paying Epic, right, for additional help. So at any rate, it's great for Epic when somebody like CD Projekt Red is able to come showcase what they have been able to do with their technology. I think the key thing is that, again, this was not a consumer-facing demo. This technology and these things that were shown during the talk weren't, they're not going to all show up in the game, because the game is going to be doing other stuff besides playing a tech demo, right? It's going to be doing all of the CPU intensive juggling and all of the memory transfers and all of the rendering pipeline outputs and all the post-processing effects, etc. And taking player input, right? And managing that. It's not going to be executing it in a canned scenario. I think the difference of opinion I have is some people felt like this was an attempt by CD Projekt Red to like mislead the public or convey to people that this is what the game is going to look like. And I don't think that was the case at all. The audience members, if you tuned into the State of Unreal, they're all developers, right? Maybe some journalists, right? But they're not, again, it's not an auditorium full of gamers looking to play, right, the next Unreal game. It's all prioritized towards developers who are actually taking this technology and using it and implementing it. So I just wanted to kind of cover that to make sure people kind of had the right understanding and impression of what that session at the State of Unreal was and what the State of Unreal is. So, you don't misinterpret what happens there, and you don't extrapolate information that's put out there to, apply it to maybe more generic use cases that are more customer facing.
Yeah, and I think maybe because in the past too, I don't think it was really part of Summer Games Fest, right? The State of Unreal was kind of a separate thing that they did a little bit before the official Summer Games Fest started.
Yeah. And I think just because of, it helps everybody else because they're all flying in right for the event anyway. It consolidates logistics. You have the potential to also, from Epic's standpoint, right, to get a more captive audience because you have developers who are there and you may be able to get more of their attention and more of them in volume, right?
Yeah.
By concurrently executing your event.
Yeah, because it was kind of under the umbrella of Summer Games Fest this year. So I think maybe that kind of added to the confusion too. Like some people were maybe a little bit more hyped or something.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I didn't see like advertising or anything, or like I don't. I mean, I could be wrong. I didn't catch wind of this as like part of Keely's series of events. It was just another trade show that was going on, right? And so other media sites carried it as concurrently going on, but like Keely has, like on the Game Awards YouTube channel, like Keely advertises like the other things that are going on that he has some supporting role in, right? Like Wholesome Direct and Day of the Devs and things like that. Those aren't necessarily his shows, but there's some type of collaborative back and forth between them. I didn't see that with regards to the State of Unreal. So, but I could understand if like Kotaku ran like a schedule that included State of Unreal. So maybe things like that happen at other media outlets and people got that confusion. I don't know.
Yeah, I was looking on the Summer Games Fest site, and it's actually on their site, the Summer Games Fest site. So
it does. Okay.
Part of their schedule. Yeah. That's why
okay.
I think maybe that's
okay.
The confusion kind of started maybe. Because
most
people were thinking it was, because obviously you see all these other direct showcases and you're like, oh, Unreal's doing something too, or Epic's doing something. I mean, so, but, it's understandable.
Miscalculation on their part.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, maybe they were trying to get as many eyeballs on the YouTube video as they possibly could. But in this case, I don't I don't think that was well executed. To Apple wouldn't advertise Apple wouldn't advertise WWDC as a thing that a lot of bloggers needed to tune into, right? Same thing with Google I/O, right? Microsoft Build goes down, and like half the time when you're even in like the blogging and media cover space, like you don't know that Microsoft Build is going down, right? Unless you're really like, Paul Thurrott or Mary Jane Foley, right? Like, so yeah, I don't know if I would do that if I were them again. Or maybe I'd put some text or wrapper or separator around it on the web page, right, to kind of distinctly break it out.
Yeah, because I mean, the majority of stuff here is like software stuff that they're announcing. A couple things I'll talk about here, like Epic Developer Assistant, which is basically an AI powered tools. It's in beta right now, but basically it helps out creators. Gives code snippets and workflow guidance, stuff like that. More software stuff that developers and people who are doing games and stuff are going to be more interested in. Obviously, like you're talking about, all the developers in the audience. They did give some other snippets, some new IPs that will be going into the UEFN, which is the Unreal editor for Fortnite. And I just wanted to bring this up because when they do stuff like this is not just like, hey, we're bringing skins, into Fortnite, like they've been doing for the past few years or so, or well, more than 4 years. This is actually assets from these IPs. So like we got Avatar, The Last Airbender, Star Wars, and Lego, that they're actually going to be doing. So for like Avatar, they're going to this collaboration is going to give creators bending mechanics. So obviously, if you watch Avatar, they have the different powers, wind, air, earth, fire. So you're going to have those kind of mechanics, which they've had in Fortnite, in the actual battle royale game. And I'm assuming they're just going to bring that kind of software, that kind of ability into the UEFN, along with it says design experiences. So maybe different kind of biomes from Avatar and Star Wars and Lego and stuff like that. They'll be pulling in. So I just think it's interesting that they're not only doing these like skins and they have the music now and the Lego the other Lego Odyssey, the kind of the adventure, open world adventure Minecrafty thing they have, but they're giving these IPs actual assets. And I think they did it a little bit with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't know if it's still in UEFN right now that you can do stuff with it, but these are actually assets from these IPs that they're going to let creators play with and make games. And obviously it's probably going to be like super regulated. So obviously have Last Airbender like exploding people and and stuff like that, but you make it gory and stuff, I'm assuming, since these are IPs, well-known IPs. But I just thought it was kind of a cool thing to bring up. And then Star Wars, they didn't actually I don't think they actually did anything specific here. They're just that they announced that they're going to be doing stuff. They didn't say exactly what. I'm assuming something the same sort of Avatar. And then the Lego is going to be, you're going to be able to do brick by brick building. So you can, kind of like in old Lego games or older Lego games where you can actually physically just, use, the different kinds of bricks and, build stuff, manually. So instead of just having like a pre conceived thing where you can just, as long as you have the materials, it just kind of automatically does it. So it's just kind of interesting. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
No, I mean, I thought those things were neat for creators, right, to use within Fortnite. So that's great. Like for people who are Fortnite creators, and there are people who are those people, and who ask you to use their codes when you're going to do stuff. Like, great, like for them. I don't think those things are like particularly far-reaching, or that they have a ton of legs. I think the big thing for those things is, I want to say there was one other developer. I think they're CCP Games. I can't remember the name of the studio who does EVE Online, but in similar vein, the EVE Online group is doing something analogous to that. And basically, it's providing tools to people in a way that's helpful for people who do want to onboard into game development. So for a lot of people, it's giving them their very first taste and exposure. Like it's not necessarily teaching them to write code, but it is giving them exposure to that creative environment, right? And so that's super helpful, right? And that's one like slight edge where maybe you don't need to be like necessarily a developer, right? Somebody who's coding in C, C++, C sharp, right? But is in the space, right? In terms of doing content creation, in the gaming space, and people who do mods, right, are probably another demographic of people that like it may be useful for you to tune into something like State of Unreal.
Yeah. And then just the last thing real quick was in the last couple of weeks of the well, I was going to say current, but they actually just swapped seasons in Fortnite. They had this past month was the Star Wars collaboration, or just like a month-long season, basically, instead of like a quarter season. I think I mentioned that last week or the week before. The last couple weeks, they actually had Darth Vader NPC in there. They had him in there the whole month, but the last couple weeks, he was actually AI powered, where you can actually talk to him and have conversations, which I thought was kind of cool. But they're actually going to be also incorporating AI powered NPCs and personas into UEFN, so you'll be able to basically create NPCs that have like AI abilities, so you can talk to it and stuff like that. So just another tool in there that you'd be able to use. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. I never actually got it personally, the Darth Vader AI, but my team did at I think one of the last times I played it during the week, and it was just kind of interesting. Like you just talk to it through your microphone and stuff. So I couldn't do it, I don't think, but I know my teammate was, and he was just like talking and like, even though I didn't have control of him, like he was following my teammate or teammates. Like if I was doing something, he would like comment. I don't like what I was, because I think I was like, I don't know, like the Mandalorian skin or something, and he would actually, oh, the Mandalorian's, taking out a sniper or something, just something like that. I thought that was just kind of cool, just kind of a kind of a cool thing when you're playing. It's a little bit more interactive. So that's just coming to UEFN also. So another cool thing. And I guess that's kind of a subject maybe for another time, but just kind of the AI NPCs, powered NPCs like that. I don't know if you had any quick thoughts on that, if you want to talk
Nope,
about real quick.
nothing quick. It's a very controversial topic and very complicated, so
Yeah,
I
no,
won't get into
that's
it
what I was
today.
thinking. Okay. All right, let's jump into segment 2 with the Mix Summer Showcase. I got the first game here with Airframe Ultra, which is kind of a futuristic. I thought it was just like a racing game, but it looks like it's more of kind of racing, but more of and I can't remember the name of that PlayStation game now. Metal. Can't remember if you remember that. They have the show about it too that just came out not too long ago or a few months ago. Kind of action, like combat car racing, kind of game. So I just thought that looked kind of cool. Kind of has like that, PS1, PS2 kind of style graphics. So
I feel like in the developer comments, or I felt like the way they kind of talked about it, it was like those things happen like in cutscenes. Like I don't think that's a really big part of the game. I think the bulk of the game is this racing environmental,
racing. Okay.
Yeah, dealing with stuff. It is, yeah. I mean, it's combat on the light cycle, right? But like those things that were shown that happened off the bike, I felt like those were I think that they were trying to indicate that those are like cutscenes, but
more
I'm
of like
not
a story
absolutely
thing.
certain. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. It's kind of a neat, I guess you want to call retro. We call PS1 style graphics retro, or PS2, but yeah, I just thought it was kind of cool game that they showed off. And then the next one, Autonomica, I believe is how you say it, which is a excuse me, sandbox survival kind of automation kind of game. If kind of like, I guess, Factorio. I'm trying to remember the other game that's kind of like that too, where the survival, sandbox game, but you can automate a lot of the stuff to, I guess, that you do within the world, within the building and stuff like that. So the kind of an interesting. I haven't gotten into Factorio or any of those type of games yet, but it looks like it may be something that I'd want to do. I just on the base viewing here, it looks like just a normal survival game, but you can do automation and stuff eventually. So it just looks like kind of a cool sandbox game. So I've been really into those lately. So it looks pretty cool. And next up, we have Football Heroes League, which is not American football, but soccer, if you will. It's kind of in the vein, I guess, of Rematch, which has kind of been big lately. If you've been following that game, just kind of, I think, lost lost my place here on my websites. I don't know if was it 3-on-3, I believe, but you basically have power-ups for like the characters that you choose. So like near the end, I think actually they're showing it right now. Like the one girl has like, fire abilities, or the one had like, I don't know if it's like psychokinetic or like telekinetic abilities, but she like shot it back into her goal and like moved it around like the arena to go into the other goals. So it's kind of cool. But looks like a kind of a cool fast paced. Oh, there it is right there. Yeah, fast paced kind of soccer game, soccer match. So more a la of Rocket League or those types of games. So I've been once again into those type of games really a lot lately. So it looks pretty cool. Kind of almost reminds me of maybe the kind of old school like dodgeball or super dodgeball from like back in the day where you had like the power ups that you can do.
Well, I think it also evokes a lot of, and I want to say this is the second time I've seen this game. I think maybe it was part of the Future Game Showcase in the spring, maybe. But yeah, I got into this game caught my interest before. It wasn't on my list for this show. I like thought about it for a little while, and I was like, no, I'm not going to put it on my watch list. It had originally, the first time I saw it, it caught my eye because I think it evokes a lot of like NFL Street, and then I think there was another 3-on-3 like street soccer game that they've tried to revive. So those were a lot of like efforts to kind of revive this type of gameplay, play style, stylistic approach. And yes, now they're mixing superpowers in it, but which is a little different. But
Yeah.
But I mean that was the thing that got me interested in it the very first time I saw it. In an era where I guess we've got EA Football Club, and now I think FIFA. I forgot who FIFA had finally found a partner for them to do like a quote unquote real soccer game. I just kind of looked at this time and I was like, I don't know if I would find time to squeeze that in. It also looked like it was a multiplayer, like more of a live service online game this time around too, and not the NFL Street type of presentation that I thought it kind of conveyed the first time around. So
yeah. I don't know if in the first time you saw it, did it kind of show off the powers, or maybe you just didn't remember?
I probably just didn't remember.
You didn't remember? Okay. All right. Yeah. But yeah, it looks like a cool, quick, maybe like, 5-10 minute or maybe like 10-minute match. That's usually like a Rocket League is. I haven't played Rematch, so I'm not really sure how long those matches are. And I think that one's, even though I think Rematch is a little bit more arcadey, I don't think it has like superpowers as far as I've seen. So this is kind of, going beyond that game, and, you have the different abilities and stuff. I'm sure there'll be, a whole cast of characters. So, all right. Next one up here for me is Holy Shoot, which is I kind of like the aesthetic of this game, kind of comic booky. Like you actually see like when you're shooting the guns, like it's like, showing the letters, like you see right there. So it's kind of shooting out, but just kind of a first person shooter where you're going into hell to try to find some artifacts. And I guess there's a bunch of the demons are like representative of the 7 deadly sins. So I'm assuming those are probably all going to be bosses, most likely, I would think. But it looks pretty cool. Like I said, I like the aesthetic, and kind of looks more like a fast-paced, maybe Doomish kind of a shooter. Maybe not, as hectic as maybe Eternal, but something like 2016 or even the newest one. So just look kind of a cool shoot 'em up game.
Yeah, that tended to be like, this is thematic to like all of the summer game shows that have gone on this week. There's a ton of horror, body horror, like religious themes, like tons of like religion, cult, spirituality, Christianity, horror, like across all of these shows, like much more so than I feel like there have been in past years. So I'm not sure what's going on or what's causing that trend, but it was definitely something that's in the air without question.
Yeah. I think there was even I think there's a anime called 7 Deadly Sins that they actually showed to. Not, I don't think it was in this showcase, but in one of the other
I think it was
ones.
in the Future Game Showcase.
Yeah. So there's that one too. I remember. But you got the next one here. Your first one from this showcase.
Yeah, so my first one is this game called The Last Caretaker. So this caught my eye because it's a lot of it evokes a lot of Wall-E. And so it's this notion that it is this kind of one of the last functioning robots after humans or mankind has finally kind of let's see. I'm trying to find that ad copy for it. So save humanity, sail across a vast ocean in this first-person survival shooter, which that doesn't necessarily like cue me into it, right? Because I'm not a big survival guy. Crafting, like another big thing that I'm not really huge into, but uh, craft explore and battle rogue machines, an atmospheric open world adventure where every discovery and upgrade brings you closer to humanity's rebirth. Doesn't have a release date. But this kind of caught my eye because, like I said, it kind of, it's kind of Wall-E kind of premise, but I thought it was really kind of graphically advanced. I think one of the things that I was really looking for was a ton of emphasis, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to the Summer Game Fest, on smaller team, smaller budget kind of stuff. And I thought that was neat. But then what I was really looking for was, okay, but then I really want to see a team taking it beyond what they should be capable, punching above their belt, right? Something like a Claire Obscure Expedition 33, and yea verily, that team is not. People take the size of the company and extrapolate that to the size of the team and draw conclusions from that I think aren't necessarily accurate. That's kind of a little bit beside the point, but my point is I was still looking for something that was kind of graphically knocking on the door of kind of the AA space, right, or something kind of above the level of I don't know if standard indie is the term that I want to apply, but this was one of those things, right, in terms of the graphical fidelity that it looked like it was achieving. So have high hopes for that one.
Nice. Yeah, I almost put that on my list too, but I was like, I don't know about that one. not because I didn't like anything. It was just like I had so many other games that I was trying to put on here. I was trying to kind of keep it down a little bit. Okay, my next one is Monsters Are Coming, Rock and Road. It's a new rogue, is it roguelite, if you want to call it that. It kind of mixes two genres, so kind of the Vampire Survivor, or I guess what they call Bullet Heaven, which I didn't realize that was a thing, and Tower Defense. So you have this kind of mobile kind of base that's rolling around, and you basically have to get, kind of like a Monster Survivor, Vampire Survivor. Get abilities and fend off the oncoming hordes and stuff. So I just thought it looked kind of cool, kind of a little bit different. You're I guess it's kind of like an escort mission, really, which in most games I don't like, but it's a little different in this one since you can power yourself up, and I think you can power up the base too to help you defend it. So it looks pretty cool. I really like the art. It looks really nice and looks really pretty. So hopefully this one will be a good one. Definitely keep an eye on this one. You never really got into the Survivor, this type of gameplay, right? Or games, I should say.
No, is this? And I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep trailers rolling in the back. Is this like kind of along the lines of like a Vampire Survivor kind of thing?
Yeah. Except you're kind of defending a mobile base, basically. So
Yeah,
so
not a subgenre I've gotten into.
yeah. All right. So next up, it's another one, MotorSlice. And this is a kind of this was a third person kind of action parkour game, which I thought looked kind of cool. You play as this young girl kind of roaming around the city, kind of, I guess, Prince of Persia, Mirror's Edge, kind of a combination. Some fighting, obviously, as you can see. You're basically fighting these robots, I guess, that are trying to take over everything. Basic sci-fi premise, but looks really good. Looks really cool. And I definitely want to check this out once it comes out. And just trying to think. Yeah, a lot of these I didn't get the actual dates for, but hopefully they'll be coming out sometime this year. But yeah, looks really, really cool.
Yeah, that's another thing that bears mentioning when you bring up dates. Like tons of games outside of Summer Game Fest were already launched are launching like in a number of days to weeks to next month. Like tons of stuff during across all of these shows. If you watched all of them, were all things that like kind of like last year, like we talked about a little bit, right? In terms of like where we were constantly getting new dates for things that were coming out that year, all the way to I forget what it was that launched in November, but like even as late as October, right? So I mean, out of this show, tons of new release dates for stuff this year got populated, and so any notion that like anybody's slate isn't full for the remainder of this year, I think there's plenty of games to be played.
Yeah, I didn't see too many things that were like shadow dropped like this, like that day or this weekend or anything like that. But most of it was either coming, like you said, coming in weeks and months. So um, I think the only thing that I saw for sure was that Liza P. I don't know if it was DLC or a new game. I know that had dropped like right when they announced it.
Was DLC.
Okay, yeah. It was DLC. Yeah, that was that same day they announced it. But yeah,
and there was other stuff too. I mean, some of the things were things like a beta was open that day, or like I said, was opening like the next week. So there's definitely a number of things that were live. Now like a lot of the content associated with like the Hitman 007 stuff, like the new mission that has Le Chiffre in it, was something that like went live last night. As they were briefing it at the show. So yeah.
I know I heard a lot of demos that were on Steam. Was that Next Fest or something like that they're doing too?
Right.
So,
that too.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into the next one, which is Neon Inferno. And this is kind of a retro side scroller beat 'em up, or not beat 'em up, like shooter, kind of more a la, I guess, like Contra, those type games. So look very cool, just because I don't think I've played any kind of Contra game or any Contra game or any other kind of Contra like in a long time. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. Just kind of shooting. Well, shooting not only like when you're going right to left, but also you can shoot in the background. So that's a little bit different, I guess. A little bit kind of something different, I suppose. But just look kind of cool. Just atmospheric. All right. Next up, I think actually is yours, which is Never's End.
Yeah, so it's probably going to take me a minute because I'm seeing all of the trailers, so it's probably going to take me a few seconds to reorient as I pop my own onto the screen and have my notes somewhere else. Never's End, turn-based tactical RPG where you return from death into the midst of a global cataclysm, possess town folk to use them as living weapons, wield the forces of nature to reshape the battlefield and lead mankind back from the brink of extinction. Has no release date. The reason this popped onto my radar is, I'm not sure if you remember, but a few years ago there was a game that I played called Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark, which was kind of like this. It was isometric. It was tile based, and it had elevation associated with it. So a little bit more, and we're going to talk about another tactical RPG that was announced during Summer Games Fest. That is probably more popular, but it invokes. There's tons of turn-based stuff that's coming back now, but tactical turn-based stuff invokes geometry and elevation and movement and placement of troops and things like that. And invokes a little bit more concern about like the symmetry, right, of the battlefield. And so I love stuff like that. And so that was why this game primarily popped onto my list. Neat mechanic in terms of like you being able to like transfer yourself, I guess, to other party members and take direct control of them. Not sure exactly how that's going to work, but I thought it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
So more of a play mechanic when actually doing that, instead of just swapping to them just willy nilly, like in most games.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell entirely from the trailer. I think maybe it's an ability to transfer maybe your powers right to another person or somebody else on another tile or something like that. So
Yeah,
not sure exactly how all the mechanics work, but it'll be something that I keep my eye on.
nice. All right, and then you got the next one, which is Opus Prism Peak.
Yeah, so this one it was a struggle because out of this show, there were, I want to say, there were 10 games that wound up on my list. So, for tonight's discussion, I tried to whittle everything down to 5. So this one was a little tough on the triage of whether or not it was going to make my list for the show, because it's kind of questionable how far the mechanics are going to take you, but it's also an escort mission, right? Which is historically a thing that I've not been a huge fan of, but I kind of like the animation style that's associated with this one is one of the reasons why it kind of broke out from the 6 to 10 group into the top 5. But it seems to be a game where you're maybe stranded out of place and you wind up kind of becoming the caretaker for this young child, and you're trying to get her back. And it's not weapons or combat oriented, but you do have the camera, which apparently you're able to use in the game mechanic. So Opus Prism Peak is a narrative-driven adventure game where you play a weary photographer who finds himself caught outside of reality. Using your old camera, you'll explore an ethereal realm and its ties to the world you left behind, uncover its mysteries, and ultimately find your way home. So thought it looked pretty neat. Like I said, I do especially like the animation style. So it'll be, one of the ones that I'll be keeping an eye on.
Nice. And also a quick segue here. Priscilla T. Hirodana, thank you for joining us in the comments. Sorry, I was kind of rushing through these games and I wasn't paying attention to the comments, but thank you for joining us tonight. Seeing up next, we got Troublemaker 2 Beyond Dream. This is a open world kind of a beat 'em up, almost kind of Yakuza like. But looks like you control a couple of two teenage characters, Jordan and V.E.D.A. This takes place in a fictional Indonesian city named Jayakarta. I mean, that's how you say that. So yeah, you're just going around, like there's many, beating up enemies and there's mini games and just kind of, like I said, a la Yakuza. So it looks really cool. It looks like more just melee fighting than anything. At least from what I saw in the trailer or in trailers. So yeah, just kind of not only Yakuza, but maybe like, oh man, I can't remember that Sega game that was back in the day where you're kind of just going around like in a fictional city, just like doing jobs and just many stuff and, fighting people when you have to. But yeah, looks like a pretty cool game, pretty good title. All right. Game Logic, you got the next 2 games here.
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me a minute to bring this trailer up.
Sure, no problem. We got first one up here is V.E.D.A. Also, welcome More to Black. Looks like he jumped in also to the comments. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, the problem with digging this trailer up is it's the weird spelling, so it's an acronym. So
yeah,
but I want to say, and again, I'm going to flip back and forth to my notes. Oh, this is the one this particular cover. And so in the wake of Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, 2 things have really kind of been reinvigorated in me in terms of just my interest in things to reach back for my backlog that I bounced off before previously. And one of those is JRPGs, but another one is Souls-like games that are heavy heavy parry mechanics, boss battle type of stuff, which is typically not my cup of tea. This game actually purports itself to be a Souls trainer, and so it locks you in an arena. I think it gives you the ability to kind of toggle some things with the boss. I'm hoping and assuming that like it lets you do things like change the sensitivity to like the block area or like the parry area tolerance and things like that. I don't know, but it also doesn't do what Souls games do, which is like many times doesn't, if you lose, doesn't give you like a huge transit thing back. And sometimes it's like sometimes you have to transit back and you have to get in a fight on your way to like fight that boss again, right? It lets you like pop right back into the fight. which is, I think is particularly helpful when you're trying to learn like combat patterns, right, of a given boss. So that's one of the major reasons this caught my interest, because I'm like, okay, if I don't like Souls games and like the difficulty is bugging me, it makes colossal sense to have access to something like a Souls training. Like, imagine if Souls games had like a training mode, right, where you could just go into an arena and fight bosses, and maybe not the exact same bosses that like you're trying to beat, but even in Expedition 33, it was somewhat, I won't say bothersome, but like it's a thing when you like fight a boss and you lose, and you're like, I didn't even have time to learn that guy's attack patterns, right? And then when sometimes the boss has like 5 or 6 different attack patterns, and you're like, okay, well, I didn't even learn the first one, so now I got to go back into it to learn the first one, and then I got 5 other ones that I have to get through. So this will be neat, right? If it sticks to landing and it's pretty effective in just kind of letting you kind of perfect skill sets in a very kind of tight control and learning loop, without some of the cruft and the inefficiencies that get in your windshield when you're playing an actual Souls game. And then you can shut this game, so you can play this for like 30 minutes, right? Shut this game down and then go play a Souls game, right? And then hopefully maybe do better.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. All right, you got the next one up. Wild Tactics, and welcome Retro the Family Man Gamer to the podcast. And I like Immortal Black's comment. Wow, the formal podcast is something different. Yeah, usually when there's like a bunch of showcases like this happening, like right after one another, we tried to kind of just jump in, kind of list out kind of our top picks, and then kind of just talk through them. So it's a little bit different format than we usually do, but we just want to try to cover all these as much of these showcases as we can.
So this was another theme and trend that I saw a lot of during the Summer Game Showcase for some reason. There was a ton of anthropomorphism as well. So either it was like deep, like it was either body horror or like horror / combat associated with some notion of Christianity, or it was animals. Right? And so this is one where you play. And I saw quite a handful of kind of heist games and crime games type of things, probably spurred on by like the Mafia of the Old Country coming out. But this is one where it's a tactical turn-based thing, which is, again, like another large title IP tactical turn-based game we're going to talk about later. But this one, you're like a squad of like animal like agents / crew going in and doing heists and other things associated with crime. I can't remember if you're I don't remember if you're like a law enforcement group or an actual criminal group. Wildest character-driven tactical strategy game you've ever seen. Build your team and maintain the relationships in the war. So it is a war against organized crime. So I assume you're some type of law enforcement outfit. Uncover the conspiracy in the animal-populated city of Clawville and find the mastermind behind its downfall. So, you'll have some opportunity to get in here and do some progression and make builds for your team members, and again participate in that, in that squad-based tactical space, not tile-based as you saw with the earlier game Never's End that I talked about, but this one is one that provides a little more freedom of movement, right, in terms of the geometry. But I also like that style of game as well. So it should be pretty awesome.
Yeah, there are a lot of tactical games out there, and I've said it before. I'll probably say it again. I always try. I'll keep trying to like these games, but I don't know. I just kind of drop off of them after a while. But maybe one day I'll find one that'll suit me. All right, that was it for the Mix Summer Showcase. So let's jump into segment 3 for the State of Play, PlayStation's big showcase that they did, and you have the first couple of titles here. First up is 007 First Light, which is from IO Interactive, which we'll talk about tomorrow for their showcase. But they did show their first kind of gameplay and preview in State of Play.
So it was super interesting that they showed it on the PlayStation stage for their first time around. I was immediately grabbed by this game, of course, having just recently seen Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. I was definitely way up high on my spy thriller type of thirst. So you see characters here from, I think that's the actor from The Walking Dead, who I can't remember the name of his character. It's just escaping my mind right now.
Yeah, that's very familiar. So
yeah, but the premise here is it's James Bond at his initial outset, so it's more of kind of an origin story to supposedly him. I don't think he actually has the designation as 007 at the beginning of the game, so it's him earning that. It's a little tropish in terms of it. It sounds like the setup is they're going after another 00 agent, which has been done in the James Bond movie series more than once. But it's interesting that it combines a lot of the kind of standard structures and mechanisms that we're accustomed to seeing in kind of the Hitman type of games, but also looks like it's incorporating a little more real-time action and a little more fluidity in combat, and not things solely isolated to like the singular encounters, right? But really kind of equipping you with a little bit more of the moves and talents and combat capability, so that you're not solely limited to taking on a goon. Like, as long as it's one-on-one, you're okay, right? But actually giving you some greater capability. So yeah, this looks super interesting. I believe it's a 2026 launch. So IO Interactive has had this license for a while, and it's good to see it finally coming to fruition, and them getting to be able to talk about it. There are also integrations along the way being planned along with the Hitman series. So, like I said, they brought Le Chiffre into the game. I think there's another mission later, not right away, but that's planned for an actual James Bond crossover before the game releases. So looking forward to everything. I liked everything that I saw here, both gameplay and cinematics. Any thoughts on this one, Tal?
yeah, definitely that it's more of, it's not just sneaking around and assassination. So it looks like you can do a little bit more kind of firefights and stuff, and a little bit more action. I'll probably check this out when it comes out, because I was never kind of big on stealth games, so that's why I never kind of went to Hitman before. But this looks pretty good. Maybe even though he hasn't had a game series before, but it kind of reminds me maybe more of like the newer Tomb Raiders, where they're kind of introducing how he became the agent that he becomes. So looks pretty cool. And hello, Ramon. Thanks for joining us in the comments. Up next, we have Final Fantasy Tactics. And I'm sorry, Final Fantasy fans, if I screw this up. The Ivalice Chronicles.
Yeah, I think they pronounce it on the stage as the Ivalice Chronicles, which is how I've been saying it.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, other than like the Summer Games Fest, that was like the only one I was able to sit down and watch most of it of. So I didn't get to actually watch a lot of these showcases and directs.
Yeah, so this one was huge. It's one that it's a weird crossover, right, in the Final Fantasy fandom, where whereas I am not like as huge of a Final Fantasy fan from an IP perspective, but again, I love turn-based tactical RPGs, and so things that are in the realm of like a Fire Emblem type of thing, in this cuts across that cloth. So again, you have the tile-based combat. What I want to say. I don't know, combat battle space kind of system. Teams of characters, right, with different skill sets, jobs, and weapons, right, that you manage and they bring to the battlefield. So, and then has a story behind it. So, this is a game that I want to say this was on. I can't remember if this was on 2DS or 3DS or the DSi, but I believe this was on an older Nintendo handheld, and so it's nice seeing it come back. It's one that I've been really looking forward to when I heard the rumblings that it was coming, that it was getting a remake. So glad to see it finally pop up at the State of Play.
Nice. All right, the next one we have, actually one that we both, I think it was the first crossover one we have, is Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. This is a game by Arc System Works, very reminiscent of the old Marvel Marvel versus Capcom fighting games, or that the kind of versus series that Capcom used to bring out. This is a 4-on-4 tag fighting game, so you get to pick from, obviously, Spider-Man, Doctor Doom, Iron Man. You got Miss Marvel in there, but just a bunch of Marvel characters, kind of more anime-ish style, I guess, kind of in their design, as you see from Captain America, especially Iron Man right there. But yeah, like very cool. This is PlayStation 5 and PC coming out in 2026. So I'm definitely gonna be taking a look at this one.
Yeah, so this was kind of I think this was, I don't know if this closed out the show, but it was near the end. Definitely kind of a surprise announcement. At first, like, I was like, "What am I looking at?" Like, and then they kind of went into it in a kind of a long segment. It's like you said, it's Arc System Works. Those are the guys who do Guilty Gear. And so on the fighting scene, these guys are well known as being a team that does like super, like, I guess I think of them as like the precision fighting game team, right? They really strive to make games that don't lend themselves as well to button mashing and really require intense understanding of like good tactics and defense to get through the games. What I love about Marvel, about this, the things that I've seen as a comic book fan, is some of the selections that they're making on IP, right? So they go after Ghost Rider, but they make Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes, right? So they make him like the most modern incarnation. At one point, I think in the trailer, you see him come in with the car, and I think the car is either a super or an ultimate. So that's and as far as I know, he like, I think there have been like 5 different Ghost Riders, and I think he's the only one that has had a car. The rest of them have all been motorcycles, I think. So that was very interesting. You see a blend of a lot of like legacy Marvel characters along with a lot of like new modern characters, and like I said, with Robbie Reyes, like modern versions. So that
Miss
is also
Marvel. So she's a newer character.
Yeah,
well,
right.
Just iteration of Miss Marvel.
Right. Yeah. So that also keeps it fresh and super interesting. And I mentioned on Twitter, I would love to see, and so Miss Marvel kind of paints the path towards something like a Champions or New Avengers. And so I'm like, I would love to see like Kamala Khan, America Chavez, Amadeus Cho, and Miles Morales, right, as a 4-person tag team. So I thought that would be pretty interesting. This is being done, hand in hand with PlayStation and with Marvel. It's a super interesting collaboration. Also indicates, it seems like this IP, this presentation of the property is going to have legs. Like they're talking about, obviously introducing more characters. I'm hoping that it has costumes. In my mind, this is the type of game that has endless potential, like along the lines of like PlayStation's kind of version of Super Smash Brothers, right? You're utilizing the Marvel IP. You have an opportunity to dig deep into the entirety of the catalog. You have the opportunity to have seasonality associated with it, to deploy new characters, right? To keep up that kind of hype train that you see around Smash Brothers, when people are constantly waiting with bated breath on like when a new character is going to drop. So it's pretty incredible. You have the opportunity to put like individual characters in here, but then also put small teams together. Like you've got Storm, so that paints the way for the X-Men. You've got why am I forgetting his name now? You've got Quill in there painting, Star-Lord painting the way for Guardians of the Galaxy. You have Spider-Man in there, so you're really paving the way for Spider-Verse characters, right? You could definitely foresee like having a 4-team member, 14 tag team composed of Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen, and then maybe Spider-Man 2099, right, or Spider-Man Noir. Like it's amazing how far they could take this, and it's amazing how far they could go with it in terms of creating the same type of fervor that you have with with Super Smash Brothers. In conjunction with this, PlayStation is making its first party fighting stick. And since PlayStation is a key member and coordinator in pulling off Evo every year, the big fighting game tournament, like I said, like the potential for this type of thing is just amazingly huge.
Yeah, and if you really want to dig deep, they have Spider-Man and Ghost Rider, which were half of the new Fantastic Four at one point for a couple of comic issues that they had. I think it was Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, maybe Hulk or She-Hulk, maybe. I forgot the fourth one, but yeah, they can do some weird combinations, and kind of like with Marvel Rivals too. They're they're not just doing, they have the same old, but they're they're doing other characters too, which is nice. All right, so our next one, and welcome Nate. I saw that he just jumped into the comments. Our next one is another crossover for the both of us, Pragmata from Capcom, which looks like they finally, well, it has coming in 2026, so at least they have a release window, not necessarily a date, because I think that was that like shown, I don't even think last year. I think it was like 2 years ago, wasn't it, when it was originally had shown it?
I want to say, I could be wrong. I thought this first made its appearance like in a showcase, which means like it could have been like 2023.
Yeah, it was just like a CGI trailer, I think they had, or something. Yeah. But yeah, sci-fi action game. They showed a little bit of gameplay during it. Looked like it was kind of mostly more like cutscenes and stuff, but they did show a little bit of actual gameplay. So kind of third person. You have that little girl that's with you too. So looks like she helps. It's not just like an escort mission or anything. So that's nice.
Yeah, Tower, are you still there? I thought I heard you cut off.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I don't know if you had any other thoughts besides.
No, I mean, like you said, I think my memories of this go back to the first time that I saw it at a showcase. It's just an interesting premise. It's a great presentation style. Huge hopes. I mean, this is the one fear is that this is a Capcom game. It is probably so it's either a UE5 game or it's an RE Engine game. Both of which I've seen Capcom, over the last few years deploy as not being very performant, and never getting fixed. So like Dragon's Dogma 2 like still does not run well on PC, right? Monster Hunter Wild still does not run well on hardware sets. It's definitely one of these games that hits the VRAM limit. So people who like you are running like a 3070 card with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, potentially are going to have problems like playing this game on PC. So I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed. Like you said, it's maybe not just entirely limited to being an escort mission, although I think it is. But but it's an escort mission where she can help, right? It has that Capcom craziness to it, right? Where we think that we're gonna get big set pieces of like kind of like great, combat ballet, and so that's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to have a great story wrapped around it. You see the interaction between the hero and the android or AI or whatever she is. So huge hopes for the potential of this. It's looking great, and so I just hope they keep on with it. Somebody mentioned it wasn't me. I think Genkai maybe on Twitter. The slate for Capcom next year looks great. With some of the other games that it announced, which I think we'll get into later. But yeah, so high hopes for this one as well.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll talk about that later. But it seems a little. I guess they're not all like you mentioned. Like sometimes they use Unreal, and I'm assuming the other times they have like an in-house whatever graphics engine they have.
They have the engine that they used for Resident Evil.
Okay, because it's like I can't remember. I keep forgetting these names of these video games, but they had that one recently that they released this past year. I think it's kind of a turn-based game, maybe, or maybe a tactic game. Kind of the weird kind of Japanese style and kind of lore to it. But that one and then another one and one of the later showcases is just kind of animation just looks and Monster Hunter Wilds too. Just the animation is like super fluid and it's just like something like I have never really seen before. This one kind of seems more straightforward for Pragmata, but it's just kind of weird how you see the different styles and of gameplay and animation and stuff like that in all their video games. So it's just kind of cool. All right, so let's jump into the next game, which is Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, which I think has been shown before. I know it was announced too, but this is kind of a old school side-scrolling Ninja Gaiden game. Just looks really cool, really kind of fast and frenetic. Just those old school Ninja Gaiden games. So it looks really good. I'm definitely waiting for this one. I loved Ninja Gaiden back in the day, so it's not. Hopefully not as hard as some of their their 3D games were of recent, but it looks like a really cool game to jump into. And then next for me is Romeo is a Dead Man, and I gotta jump into this one real quick, which I don't know if this one. So it looks like this one's an exclusive, but I just thought it was kind of a cool looking action. The kind of third person action game. So just really, I think this is Grasshopper is doing this one.
Yeah, so this is Suda 51 Studio.
Suda 51. Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember that. I was just seeing the Grasshopper here, but yeah, just kind of like weird, kind of stylistic storytelling on this game. So kind of science fiction, but super violent. I think like a lot of his games are, but looks pretty cool. There's like watching the trailer is like all kinds of different animations going on. And I don't know if this is the actual gameplay too, or if this is just like cutscenes and stuff where you see like obviously like that one's more like old school animation. And there's like one part in the trailer where it's like almost like vector graphics and stuff, and then there's regular just 3D, modern animation. So it looks pretty cool. Looks pretty trippy actually. Hopefully it'll come to at least PC, maybe even other consoles at some point. Looks like it just has PS5 for now. In 2026, I think a lot of their games were in 2026 for PlayStation, and kind of like we were talking about before too. So, but yeah, looks pretty cool. All right, and then the last one I think is one for both of us, Tides of Tomorrow, which I need to jump to that one real quick. Oh, okay, yeah, this one looked really interesting. Kind of almost, I guess, Waterworld-ish kind of game where you kind of on these floating islands out in, I guess, an ocean or a sea. But yeah, looks pretty cool. Almost the graphics almost kind of look like, especially the people when they're not in a mask or anything, but almost look like Sea of Thieves a little bit to me when I was watching this. But a little bit more, I guess, realistic. Like Sea of Thieves is like really stylistic and stylized, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, the reason this one made my list is it's super, and this was true of a lot of games to me that I saw at State of Play. Is I felt like a lot of the games that I saw at State of Play were ones that were coming with. There's a part of me, and I'm going to use it here on this game, where sometimes it might be a gimmick, right? But each of these, a lot of games that were at the State of Play, I felt like were okay. This is a genre that we've seen before, but they're trying to do this type of thing to like stretch it, right? Or just shift it, lane shift it a little bit left or right from like the typical thing that we know. So for me, there wasn't a ton of like, we've seen and done that before. In particular, this scene that we're looking at, which talks about how you'll have to deal with the consequences or the repercussions of what somebody else had done. And so that scene that was on the screen at that moment when the previous player who'd been that way before you pushed that guy in the water. And so when you came along, he had been hurt and had gotten out of the water and was asking you for help. And so I think this is a game that seems like it is borrowing a little bit from Death Stranding, right? In terms of, whatever the tagline is that we use with Death Stranding about it being like the world's first like offline multiplayer game. And so in terms of how you are able to interact with what other players have done in the world without actually like playing co-op with them, right? And so I think that premise is kind of interesting, right? In terms of, expanding on that idea of like things that other players who have come before you have done and potentially left behind for you, that you may be not, in this one, in Death Stranding, it's a matter of things that they can do to help you. In this game, it seems like not limited to that. Like maybe things that players have done before you wind up like screwing you over, right? And so that's something that you have to contend with. It seemed like there was a bit where they talked about like an ability to work together, and so I don't know if that's like kind of offline co-op where like if somebody is on your friends list, the two of you can talk, and they can do things, and then you can play when you get home from work and maybe see where they've left stuff. I don't know if you like connect in a friends list and then like that's the content that winds up being like in your gameplay. I don't know. So, but I thought that the whole premise was interesting, just in terms of kind of stretching the bounds of what's kind of normally been done in like this third person kind of action adventure game before.
Yeah, and kind of going beyond like even Elden Ring, where you can kind of like leave little notes for people. This is like actually possibly like story. Well, like it says multiplayer story game, which is like something that affects you after somebody else had done it. I had another thought, not totally forgot what I was going to say.
Well, the one thing I'll mention to the chat. So number one, I appreciate all you guys coming through. Normally we put your guys' comments up on the screen. Like it is literally taking everything that I have to keep up with constantly cycling these trailers through for all the games that we're going through. So I just don't have time to bring your guys' comments up on the screen, but I do see the comments you guys are leaving in the chat. And, as Tal mentioned before, we really appreciate you coming through.
Yep. And I'll definitely say, like Nate says, so many games. They were a lot of games. Yeah, I had a very pull myself back when I was trying to make my list for this game. And yeah, I still put a lot of games in here, but I guess it kind of worked out since DB's not here, so we're kind of able to get through these a little bit more, maybe get a little bit more detail too on some of these. But let's jump out of the state of play, go into segment 4, going to the Summer Games Fest live show that they did. First one up is Acts of Blood, which we both had on here. And let me jump to that on my side really quick. So this is kind of another beat 'em up game. I guess not so much a Yakuza, but maybe more like Sifu.
Yeah, that's the game it evoked for me was Sifu.
Yeah, kind of more technical fighting. Definitely, you got to land your shots in that game. I really want to get back to that game too, because it was interesting, just kind of the premise. But yeah, this is another one which looks like mostly melee fighting. They also mentioned kind of the raid or those kind of faster paced kind of action movies of late.
And I said the other night, the first time that I was talking about this on another podcast, that I didn't think this was Muay Thai, but I actually think it is. So this is whatever it is, and I'm not a martial arts expert in recognizing styles. I don't think this is Krav Maga, but like this is a very distinctive, very specific martial art style. It's not just like Gidang martial arts. So it's a single developer who's making this game. I believe. Okay, yeah. Ramon says that he also thinks it looks like Muay Thai as well. So it's a single developer. I mean, he's got help. But yeah, I love it. Very. I mean, it evokes John Woo games that have come before and things like that. So yeah, big potential in that one as well.
And I like too. It looks like it's obviously it's a lot more hand to hand, and obviously you'll have control of that. But like in that last piece, it looked like it was kind of more of like a finisher where he's you kind of just finish him off. He does his little big move on the guy, so it looks pretty cool. Up next for me, one I've talked about actually a few weeks ago, Arc Raiders, or about a month ago, that finally gave actually a release date, which is unfortunately not until October 30th. This was the extraction shooter that's coming out from Embark, the guys who do the finals, from the developers of the finals. I don't know if it's the actual same guys, but they finally gave that release date, and they had a new trailer for it. Looks just looks really good. Like even during the tech test when I was playing it, it just seemed like it was like done. Like I didn't really have any problems with it, gameplay wise, graphically, anything like that. Just a really pretty game too. But yeah, unfortunately, not coming out until the fall. But hopefully, they polish it up. Maybe there's just more. There was only one map that we were playing on. I don't know. Maybe there'll be multiple maps or just even more story to the game itself. It looks like going by the trailer that they released. So I can't wait for that. So should be pretty cool. The next one is, and I don't know. You never got into the extraction shooters either, right? That much?
No.
Get my check. Okay, that's a shame. Next one is Deadpool VR, and just a little side note, I'm not going in order of when they showed these, so just because I think like Deadpool VR was one of the last ones they showed, but just kind of the way we did it. But Deadpool VR is a new game from MetaQuest, partnering with Marvel Game Studios. So it's Deadpool, so it just looks like just wacky, hilarious, action game. Obviously, I don't remember if they said who the voice actor was or not, but
it's Neil Patrick Thomas.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's Doogie Howser / I can't remember what his character was on
How
I Met Your Mother, but yeah.
So that kind of makes sense because he's always kind of that wisecracky guy, and in those kind of shows and movies and stuff sometimes. So yeah, it should be good with him as Deadpool, and just I think at the very end they show like Omega Red, so that they have some known villains in there. That looks like the Hand that he's fighting right there, which is a ninja clan. But yeah, looks like a pretty cool, crazy game. So it should be interesting. All right, up next for you, Game Logic, is Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, which I believe is going to have its own direct, I believe, tomorrow. Well, I'm assuming they'll show off a lot more gameplay. I do have this on, I think I got it on Epic actually. Last time it got free on there, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet, the first one. But we'll see if anything in the direct there here that showed. It was kind of more of like a cutscene, I think they showed here, no gameplay, but
right, yeah, and I can't keep straight with all the Summer Game Fest events. And this was one that was announced like after like we already had the schedule. Like it was a surprise. So yeah, it's either tonight or tomorrow night. I think it's tonight, maybe at 9 p.m. I can't remember, but yeah, this is a deeper look at an exchange between two of the main characters in the game, and the actors. I can't remember what all these actors are. They're not. I mean, I think these guys are known in foreign films and independent films. In particular, the Italian actor here.
I think they say at the end actually of the trailer.
Yeah, they do. They show their names up on placards that they have on the scene. I just don't have them memorized. Yeah. They're not like well-known faces to me, like like the guy from The Walking Dead was, or some of the other characters. But yeah, like this was just on my list because it's just because of the time of year, and other things that are going on schedule wise. I did pick up a PlayStation 5 Pro last weekend, and I had kind of jokingly mentioned on Twitter that Death Stranding 2 was one of the rare games that was coming through that was making me regret not having consoles anymore. So I did pick up a PlayStation 5 Pro, and now I will be able to play this when it drops. I think this comes out in a couple weeks, in late June. So I mean, I don't want to say standard, but like it's Kojima, it's Death Stranding, it's Decima Engine. Like we have all the reasons in the world to expect very incredibly high production quality and a very albeit weird but very heartstring pulling kind of story. So super interesting to see this additional introspective look at these or intimate look at these characters. Be interesting to pull apart and see what is their past relation here, where do they cross paths before. I can't tell if he was not able to recognize there because she had grown up, or maybe he just wasn't familiar with her face as much before. I don't know. So but very interested to see how the rest of the story unfolds. So yeah, Luca Marinelli, and Alyssa Jung. So looking very forward to this game on the slate.
Were these two characters in the last game, or are these new characters that you know?
These are new characters.
These are new characters. Okay. All right. And then my other question or comment was, "Oh, got a PS5 now, huh?" You didn't mention that last week. I don't know if you had it last weekend.
I did not.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. All right. The next one for me is End of Abyss. Speaking of, you were talking about the body horror earlier, so this is kind of that kind of isometric, or I guess isometric view, more or less. There's this. I think it's a girl. I don't know if you can really tell actually, but this person kind of going through this dingy world, and there's all these weird horrible creatures, like a hand creature, and it looks like a hand creature, but it looks like when you shoot certain enemies too, they'll like kind of split off and become, more than one. There's like this one like blobby creature that I think she hits at one time, or he hits at one time, and like a bunch of enemies drop off of it. So it just looks really, really weird. But and usually I don't go for those type of games, but this one, like, I don't know, it doesn't look like gross. It's just kind of weird to me, I guess. But yeah, that one I'm definitely interested in. So they didn't have a date for this one, unfortunately, but I definitely will check this one out once it comes out. I don't know if you had anything on this one.
No, this would definitely caught my interest. I can't remember if it made my. It didn't make my particular list. I can't remember. I remember thinking that there's a very conscious objective, something that came across my mind that caused me to not put it on the list. But definitely interesting.
Nice. All right. Up next, we have Felt That Boxing. So it's kind of looks like it'll be basically like a Punch Out type of boxing game, but all the characters are puppets. And I believe when they're talking about this one, this is made in Unreal Engine 5, and they like straight up look like puppets. Like it looks, even when they show like the actual gameplay, it's like, these puppets, just punching each other and stuff. So just kind of a weird, wacky game out there, but it looks pretty cool. Just kind of the aesthetic, and I kind of like these. I think more as I'm getting older, I kind of lean toward like these kind of weird kind of animation, or just more weird graphical styles of games, like obviously this one. And another one I'll be talking about later, kind of more of a retro style animation. But yeah, this one just looks just kind of funny, just kind of straight up funny boxing game. So just weird, some weird games out there this year. So, but it looks cool. I'll definitely check this one out when it comes out. All right, and then next one we actually both have, which is Game of Thrones: War of Westeros. This is an RTS game in the Game of Thrones universe. I think this trailer, I don't think they showed any gameplay. I think it was just like a CGI trailer, I believe, if I remember correctly. But RTS game, I always love RTS games, so this is definitely in my wheelhouse, and I love Game of Thrones, so it's just kind of best of both worlds. But like they show, like that's Jon Snow, so he kind of looks like Kit Harington, but not really. It's just off. Like they show the Lannister. I forgot his name was right now. There he is, right there, Jamie.
Jaime.
I think
Jamie.
Yeah.
I always call him Jaime, but Jamie. Yes, Jamie Lannister.
Yeah, but they show him a little bit later and a little bit closer, so it kind of looks like the actor from the show, but not really. So it's kind of one of those things. But
yeah, I don't know. Jon Snow looked to me to be much more actor accurate than Jamie Lannister did. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Kit Harington actually did the mocap for this.
Yeah,
or at least maybe part of the facial capture.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this game clicked for me because I was like, so it took me maybe 3 times to finally sit through all of Game of Thrones. Like I tried it. Like I'd watch season 1. I think I watched the first 2 seasons the first time, and then I was like, whatever. And then came back and watched season 1. And then I was like, yeah, whatever. So finally I was like, okay, I'm finally going to do it and watch the whole thing through. And sitting and watching the entirety of the thing, like, gave it an entire experience, right? That still kind of sits with me to this day. just in terms of the kind of epic journey that you went on with those characters. And as I saw this, my first instinct was like, no, I don't need a Game of Thrones that's not my Game of Thrones experience, right? I don't need somebody trying to replicate that. But then I was like, oh no, maybe wait a second. Maybe I am okay playing some of the kind of the what ifs, right? What if this battle had gone a different way? And so, I was like, and I think would like spending some more time in that world, right? Now that I'm a little distance from having like binged the whole series. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah, it's kind of surprising to me that because I was very hyper specific in not putting games on my list that didn't show gameplay this year, which has not always been the case. I've typically been a one who's like, I need to see the premise, I need to see the setup, I need to know who's involved, and like that is typically enough to gain enough interest for me to put it on my watch list. But this year I was a little more discriminating. So this is weird that it was probably the one game maybe that I did put on my watch list, and I think it's entirely because of like the Game of Thrones license, but also in terms of, I mean, so this is Warner Brothers, right? So it is, if I'm not mistaken, so it's probably like the same studio that has done, well, it's not Monolith, but it is people who've have some experience doing these RTSs before. I'm gonna have to look it up again. I want to say I'm pretty certain it was Warner Brothers.
So I'm looking on the Steam webpage, and it has developer and publisher as Playside.
I
don't recognize that.
Do you see if it's no? Okay, well maybe I'm confused or got it mixed up with something else that I saw from Warner Brothers this show. But yeah, but either way, I mean I saw enough here that it caught my interest, and I saw enough of them. I felt like trying to capture the authenticity of the show, and pull it into the game. So something to keep an eye on. Hopefully it'll go well. At least was enough to kind of pull it over the threshold of being above my interest level to put it on the watch list.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Up next, we have another one for you, Game Logic, is Mortal Shell 2. And I like Ramon's comment. I don't know anyone else pronounce it that way for Jamie Lannister. You can pull that one out next time, Ramon, when you're talking about the show.
I think it was because I read the name in the book before I saw him on the show, and so I didn't hear anyone pronounce it.
Yeah.
And so when I saw it in the book, I was just like, Jaime. So yeah, this is so my one not knock on Summer Game Fest is there was a lot of this, right? There was a lot of third-person action adventure, Unreal Engine 5, body horror, invoking images or feelings like it's going to be like a Souls-like kind of big boss battle-centric type of game. Ad nauseum throughout the show. Regardless, though, this one caught my interest. Definitely something that I was kind of interested in. Again, because this one was very early in the show, and I'm coming off that Expedition 33, re-sparking my interest in Souls-like type games. I don't know that this is a Souls-like, but it may be more like there's a game that Slow-Mo and Luca play. I want to say maybe that's Remnant. It was a game. It was a game, and it had a sequel, so maybe it's Remnant. I can't remember. It's something that starts with an R. Maybe it's Remnant or Remnant 2. I can't remember exactly. But maybe it'll be something that's similar to that type of gameplay style. But the one thing I noticed in this one is, the character uses both ranged weapons and melee. And it appears that there's some Remnant and Remnant 2. Remnant from the Ashes. Okay, thanks, Ramon. But it appears that there's some progression in the weapons that he gets, particularly with regards to the ranged weapons. So, super excited about this one. Look great. That's the other thing I'll say about, a lot of the games that showed during Summer Games Fest is they were all, I felt all like graphically polished, really appealing from a graphical perspective. So, and I guess that's a lot of, UE5 giving everybody a leg up, but I was really impressed by most of the games that I saw during during the show.
Nice. And I'm assuming you didn't play the first one then, because this is the second one in the series.
No, I meant yeah. In fact, you just mentioning that reminded me that that's on my list of things to go back and pull the thread on, but I just haven't had the time. But yeah, no, I didn't play the first one.
Okay. All right. Next one for me is Mouse PI for Hire. So this is another one that kind of has kind of a different graphical style. It's kind of old school 3D animation, like almost kind of old school Mickey Mouse animation. So he plays a mouse who's a private investigator, and, third person. So which is a little bit different than maybe like Cuphead, where it's kind of that same kind of art style. But that one was more side scrolling. This is actually a third person. You're moving around. I don't know if it's open world or not. I was trying I don't know, for some reason it doesn't have it on this Summer Game Fest page that I'm looking at. But just kind of a cool animation, cool aesthetic, kind of roaming around the world. So so that you can see there.
And this is I can't remember. This is Troy Baker on voice.
Yeah, he's doing the voice. Yep. I think one of many games that he was announced that voice of. But yeah, looks pretty cool. Looks kind of 3D, backgrounds, but still kind of that old school animation. Yeah, there we go. Troy Baker, Jack Pepper. But yeah, looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I also forgot to mention when you were briefing Deadpool. Yeah, I wasn't able to tell or catch, and I haven't had time to dig whether or not that game is exclusive to Oculus and will only be available on the MetaQuest at first, or if it's also coming to Steam VR.
Yeah, I think it is, because I know the Iron Man. Well, I think the Iron Man game came to PlayStation 2, I think, at one point. All right. Not too long after it was on Quest, but I think it was like a timed exclusive or something. But I think it might be at least a timed exclusive for MetaQuest.
And I haven't made my final, but I did incidentally, while I was digging through the utility room this past week, I also found my old Oculus Rift S headset, which I thought I had gotten rid of, and I have that in the back to be hooked back up again. But I'm looking at potentially picking up something to get back into VR. So it was interesting that this game dropped, because it looked so good and so interesting to me that it may be the thing that pulls me back into getting into like a modern VR kit.
Yeah, animation looked really good on Deadpool. So yeah, definitely. Next one up for me is Autonomica Way of the Sword. This was another one, kind of like I was mentioning before about the animation of like Monster Hunter Wilds. Another one, another game I can't remember, but just the gameplay in this just looks like awesome. Just very fluid. Just when he's kind of slicing up the enemies, and as you kind of see here, it looks really cool. I played a little bit of Autonomica back in the day, but this one looks like it's going to be really good. So definitely look forward to this one. And I think this one's out next year. Yeah, just has 2026 as a potential release date. I say potential because you never know. I think this one had already been announced too, I believe, at some point. Either this year, last year. Yeah,
I think at the Game Awards. Yeah,
okay.
It was announced. It was not much more than maybe a teaser, of a 5-second teaser, or maybe just even like a screenshot or splash screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first time we're seeing something like really cinematic associated with it. It looks like it is incorporating a parry mechanic. So yeah, looks great.
Yeah, I think definitely on this scene here, when he's fighting the other human or humanish character, like just the animation looks awesome. Like it looks very fluid. So yeah, definitely look forward to that one. And all right, and the last one for Summer Games Fest Live is for you, Mr. Game Logic. Wu-Tang: Rise of the Deceiver. Sorry, next game. Ramon says he's going to play through all the other Autonomicas before he plays the new one. So, well, you got time. So, until next year. I'm assuming you're talking about Autonomica.
Yeah, this for me was like I don't know if I want to say. Yeah, I mean, this for me was the surprise announcement of the show, and the one that if I had a falling out of the seat moment that harkened back to years past of E3, it was this one. And I saw them going through like the character roster here, and I was like, oh, is this a Wu-Tang joint? And then when I realized it was, I was like, okay, but what is it? Like, what is the gameplay style, right? How are they going to do this? And then obviously you start getting the stuff here. Just kind of, I don't know, man, just an amazing moment on the gaming landscape for the blending of just the right time for the blending of this kind of pop culture, music thing, along with video games. Obviously the trailer didn't really tell us, what much there is to this game outside of, third person action adventure, beat 'em up in an animated style, but like that's also all I needed like to be convinced. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, the little bit of that little clip that they showed of the gameplay almost looks like the animation was kind of Spider-Verse animation or like South of Midnight ish. So looks pretty cool. All right, so that is it for Summer Games Fest Live. So obviously, once again, ton of games through there, but that we were just picking through the ones we thought looked interesting for us. Segment 5 here, we're going to jump into Day of the Devs. And Game Logic, you have the first 3 games to go through here. This is another. I think this one this one was from today, right? Day of the Devs.
Last night, Day of the Devs
Oh.
airs right after Summer Game Fest.
Games Fest. Okay.
Yeah. So this is a game that I'm super excited about. It is culturally relevant. It's the story of, and I'm sure all of the DEI people are flipping out, which is another reason why it's one of my favorite games that have been shown during Summer Game Fest. It is a story of it's kind of not funny, but this was the premise and the setup behind the beginning of Black Panther 2 with Killmonger. But the setup is that all of these African artifacts are being held in Western museums, European, U.S. Museums, are not being returned back to African countries, some of whom have actually asked for them back to be shown in their own museums. One of the developers mentions that a Kenyan, I think she said a prince, went and was allowed to view one of the artifacts at, I think, a British museum, and was told that it was going to be returned to Kenya. Never actually was, is still in storage, right? And so in some cases these artifacts aren't even on display at the museum, right? They're just in storage waiting for rotation. So it is a political and culturally relevant and poignant story. And so the premise behind the story is that you have a group of African operatives, right, who have made a pact to get these artifacts back by any means necessary. And so, from a gameplay perspective, it is also squarely in my wheelhouse. I just talked a couple weeks ago, I think, about Rainbow Six and how you could pre-plan and do all your setup and all that kind of stuff. And that's exactly what you do in this game. You get intelligence on the place where you need to extract the artifacts from. You have a setup phase where you're able to go in stealth mode and kind of pre-stage some things to facilitate your escape. And then you go into heist mode to actually go grab the artifact and then make your escape. It's being done by a group of African developers, and so just 360 degrees, right? It is yet again the right story in the right time to kind of call out some political and social injustice, and actually delivers a game that is actually like squarely in my wheelhouse, like some of the games that have come out over the last couple of years. So yeah, definitely behind this one.
Nice. All right, up next. Sorry, I was flipping through screens here. We have Sword of the Sea, which I think I almost put that one on here, but I can't remember why I didn't. I think I was kind of chugging along trying to get all my games in here. So if you want to pull that one up.
Yeah, this game has actually been shown at a couple game shows. I want to say this also showed up at the Mixed Summer Games Fest. May have been shown at the State of Play. Maybe that's where I saw it. Didn't make it onto my list from the State of Play, but made it onto it from the day of the dev showing. Kind of like I kind of suspected, the developer, and this is the same developer as Journey. I can't remember the other games that person has done. This would be a good thing for DBQ because I think he's played all of those. I think he and Swiss have played these games. But the person talks about how a lot of it is kind of this spiritual kind of Zen type experience of, that you get from like snowboarding and surfing, that you kind of get into this zone and you kind of, he mentioned you kind of see the mountain right all in one span of your vision. And that's kind of the feeling he's trying to evoke in this as well. It's super interesting that, while this game is, I guess at some point has combat in it, but, but also is incorporating like all these Tony Hawk, like skateboarding tricks and snowboarding tricks that you do. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So the game looks kind of gorgeous, and this is a thing that makes this point on the gaming landscape where, yes, good graphics are important, but also for me at least, like I also love games that have great fluidity and animation in them, and that's one of the things. That's one of the things that, in my opinion, takes Clair Obscur Expedition 33 and really breaks it out. Right, is the incredible work that the animation team did in that game. Same thing for Atlas. When you look at Shin Megami Tensei 5, Metaphor ReFantasio, right? But a lot of their games are a lot of where they really make their ground and their impression is in their animations. And so this is a game that appears to be sticking the landing from that regard as well. So looking forward to that one.
Yes, that game company. They've done Flow, Flower, Journey, and then Sky, Children of Light. It's been their 4 games so far. So, assuming that's the same developer. All right, let's jump into your third one here. Thick as Thieves. I'm gonna pull that up.
Yeah, sorry, that trailer didn't come up right away. Yeah, so this is a new team of developers that War Inspector is working with, and I have high hopes for this one. I'm super interested by the premise that was set up. I'm super worried about this game because it's War Inspector, who I want to say has like his most recent venture has got, he was trying to do like an NFT thing or whatever, which I think he intensely believed in. But I think it just got, way off the rocker. But I think this isn't actually the day of the devs showing. I think they showed a lot more. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it, but he's working with a team who is appears to be remote. Not all working in the same location. It is an incredibly ambitious game. They are trying to. Here we got it. Okay, so they're trying to pull off this multiplayer game, which is a heist game, which is in a multiplayer arena. And I'm not sure how many people are going to be in there. Let's just call it 24. You're all going in to try and boost like this one thing. And so, and it's PvE. So in many ways, it's kind of heist extraction, right? It's as we seem to be having this rage about extraction games. You are interacting. So it's PvE VP. So you're challenged by the NPCs that are in the game, but then you can also interact with other thieves in the game. And the couple of the developers mentioned that no honor among thieves, right? So you don't know if the thieves are going to kind of work with you to boost the item, or if they're going to pick your pocket or knock you out or do some other move that makes it difficult for you to achieve your objective. So I'm not exactly sure how play balancing is going to work out. Apex Legends is famous for this, but I even see it happening now a lot in Call of Duty, where it's like the third party, right? It's like you're in a fight with somebody, and then and then and then you get impacted by somebody else who totally screws up your game, right? So it'll be interesting to kind of keep track of it and see how it goes. I have the highest hopes for it. I have like a lot of fears that it's just going to come off the rails. But it was encouraging that they showed this much gameplay in Day of the Devs. So it's just very hard to tell. And I don't suspect this group is going to get any kind of publisher backing. So, and it's a lot. It appears that it's got to be a live service thing. So, like, how in the world are you going to make that happen? So I have a lot. It looks impressive, but I also have a lot of worry around it. But it did make it onto my radar from the Day of the Dev show.
Nice. All right. Up next for me is a title called Tire Boy, which is third-person action adventure game, platforming game. You're kind of this tire with arms and legs. I'm not really sure what's going on there in the story, but you're going around this open world, or maybe kind of open big areas, just fighting enemies, like kind of solving puzzles. Just once again, just kind of a quirky little game. I just thought was kind of interesting. So I haven't played a lot of platformers lately, so it might be a good time to jump back into that one. And that one's coming out. I think it just has to be announced, so nothing concrete on that one yet. So that was it for Day of the Devs. I'm sorry. There's one more for Day of the Devs. Sorry, Game Logic. You had the last one, Unbeatable.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a quirky title, and I'm not entirely certain even. I mean, I have an understanding of what the game is behind it. But I added it onto my list mostly because of the kind of heartfelt presentation from the developer. And I'm not sure if this part is gonna. Oh no, maybe it will. And so it's a music game predominantly, and I'm trying to get past it because there was like, so at the end of the Day of the Devs, there's this like musical performance. Not actually certain if it's going to get to the trailer. Oh yeah, I guess the trailer is intermixed with the music video, which is going to make it difficult to really catch the gameplay elements of it. But the gameplay elements of it that I saw kind of evoked a lot of the kind of same kind of gameplay and presentation of yeah, I guess it just flashes through, so it's really hard to get a lock on it. I think there's a section here that really focused or gave you some longer duration of gameplay, but it's hard for me to find it in this video. But it evoked a lot of the images of like Hi-Fi Rush. And then it was a lot of the messaging from the developer that mentioned that they've been on Steam for about 4 years, and they've done at least like kind of like one vertical slice of this game, and so everything that they've done has been because of fan support, and so that encouraged me to kind of start keeping tabs on it, and just seeing if it turns out well. This is the musical performance and not really the trailer. So, but definitely, like if you're interested in kind of music rhythm games, that over the last few years we've seen this rise of games that blend music and rhythm with combat. You go over to Steam, and I would say try and check it out. But the community support that they've gotten kind of was enough to convince me that maybe it was something that I should start kind of keeping track of.
Nice. All right. So that does it for segment 5, Day of the Devs. Once again, there's a ton of games in that show also. Real quick, segment 6 is Devolver Direct, Devolver Digital. They only showed one game, Ball X Pit, which at first I was kind of skipping through the trailer until I actually looked at the Steam page and like read what it was about. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I might check this out. So it's kind of a brick breaking, so kind of like Breakout of back in the day, but also base building survival roguelike game. So it looks really interesting, kind of interesting actually. So I don't know, Game Logic, you were like, I don't know if any of you guys are going to get it. I think I might buy this one. So it looks pretty interesting, but definitely will I don't think they don't have a release date yet for this one, but it's just kind of a weird mix of genres there. I'm not really sure how they're going to pull it all together, but those guys are pretty good. They usually make some pretty good games, so we'll have to check that out once it comes out. That was it for the Devolver Direct. So that's it for our Direct and showcases talk for tonight. But tomorrow we will get back into some more. But before we go tonight, I think we're gonna kind of jump into Nintendo Switch 2 talk a little bit here. I did pick one up this past week. Excuse me, or past a couple days ago. Thursday was the official release date, which I for some reason I thought it was going to be Friday, and I'm glad I jumped onto Discord because I would have missed the chance to go out and get one. So real quick here, we're going to go through. So I did, like I said, I didn't pre-order one, so I had to go actually to a store, and I went to Best Buy, and I actually had to jump in line. It was a midnight release. They did on Wednesday night into Thursday morning. I was probably like...
So you lined up at the midnight release?
Yeah, I lined up at the midnight release. I got there probably like an hour and a half early, maybe, before they were going to open. There was probably about 40, maybe 45 people in front of me. And me and my son, actually, I brought my son along. I asked him if he wanted to go. He's like, sure, I'll go. I'm sure he just wanted to stay up, late. But that's fine. He doesn't have school anymore. So we both went out there. About 40, like I said, about 40, 45 people maybe in front of us. We hit, so obviously they had been there I'm assuming for a long time, because a lot of them, most of the majority of those people had like seats and, they're all comfortable and, had food and all that kind of stuff. About a half hour before they're going to open though, maybe 45 minutes, the employees started coming around and getting people's names and giving us tickets. So if you had a ticket, then you're pretty much gonna, you were gonna get a system at the very least, if not, other games and accessories and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool. That's kind of how they did. I actually went out. I did that for the Wii, the original Wii release. It wasn't a midnight release. It was like early morning. I was just waiting till they opened their stores. They did the same thing. They just gave you like a voucher, and I came back when they opened. Here they just did it, a half hour, 45 minutes before the store was gonna, open for, sales. So that was cool. So I knew I had one because I had the ticket. They wrote down my name on the ticket. The person doing it, like, signed her name. So it was like an official thing. So that was actually kind of nice and pretty cool that they did something like this instead of just like sitting there until they open, wondering if I was going to get one or not, because I just couldn't get through the pre-orders. So then, I was able to get that. I got Cyberpunk, which I already have, but I just wanted to test it on the Switch too. So, sorry.
So you bought that in store?
Yeah, I bought in store and I bought the physical version. So it actually came on. It's on the disc, or on the not disc, but on the cart. So, which was nice. And I just want to kind of have at least one physical game. Plus, I wasn't going to buy an SD card there, and I knew I kind of have limited room for some, because I did the game transfer, the system transfer later that night, but I wanted to have something that I can just throw in and play pretty much right away. Yeah, there was a little bit of a download still, just I think it was an update or something. So, but it wasn't that bad. But so about that, I just bought a case, and I didn't really buy any other peripherals. Excuse me. Trying to think if I bought anything else. That was pretty much it. So, came home, unboxed it. Unfortunately, I don't know if you heard, but some of the GameStop stores kind of stapled the receipt onto the box, and that kind of screwed up the screen. Because and I know Game Logic, you said that really wasn't Nintendo's fault, but kinda, because the way when you open it, like if you just open it normal, the screen or the system itself is right there on top. No cardboard. I think just like a thin, just like that. I don't know, like foamy kind of sleeve that they put electronics in and stuff like that. That was pretty much all that was protecting you against in a little, it's super thin cardboard that the box is made out of. So they pretty much would have screwed up the screen anyways. But fortunately, it didn't. They don't stable the stuff like that at Best Buy. But I was able to open it up. I set up the dock, which the dock has HDMI, USB-C for the power, and then it actually has a LAN port in the dock now, which is nice. And then two just regular USB-A, or probably like 3.1 ports on the side, just like the old dock. I was able to kind of go through the initial setup, and then I got to the part where I do the system transfer from my old Switch. I was able to do that. The only problem I had there, and it wasn't with Nintendo's setup or anything, it was I actually lost internet. My internet went down at one point, like right at the end. It was like a 99% almost done. I was like, oh great, I'm gonna have to do this all over again. But no, unfortunately, once I got connected, once it came back up, like I don't know, it's like 15 minutes later or something. I just had to like reconnect the Wi-Fi on both systems, started the process over again, and actually started from where it left off. So that was nice. So I was, they were thinking ahead at that point. So I was able to do that. And once I did the system transfer, I didn't even have to log into my my account or anything, because it was just grabbing all my stuff from the original Switch to the new one. So I was able to do that. I downloaded Mario Kart. So Mario Kart was just on like a little slip of paper, cardboard or whatever. So that was just a download. There's no physical disc on that one. I did get the Mario Kart bundle. So I was able to download that and actually played that. I played the Mario Kart, even though I got the Cyberpunk for the reasoning of not having space. But I played Mario Kart for pretty much that whole night, more or less, which is maybe like an hour or so by the time I got that set up, because it was getting pretty late then. So far I've only played the Grand Prix. Excuse me, the Grand Prix mode, which is basically just like the old mode where you pick one of the cups and you race. You have 4 races that you go through. But when you're at the and it's, I don't know, I've seen people like, I guess, have an issue with the Grand Prix, I guess how it's set up for some reason. I mean, it's just like 4 races. Like I don't get what the big deal is. I guess it's because each race, so you do like the first race is like the normal like 3 laps, and then you do, I think, like the next 2 races are, you're kind of like, the races are going to like the next map basically. So you don't really do laps. It's just like kind of one long race, but it probably takes as much as doing like 3 laps. So I don't know. I guess people kind of, excuse me, like pissed off that you don't have like regular 3 laps for all 4. I don't know. It's weird. So then there's also a tour mode, which I'm not sure what that exactly entails. I haven't tried that out yet. And then you have online, obviously, where you just do regular races, and then the battle, where you have the balloons tied to your your cart and you're just battling people. That's actually a separate mode. That's not actually in the online mode. So I don't know if you can do battling online or not. I haven't gone into any online races yet, but I've done that so far. But if you're just at the menu screen when you see all the different modes, you can actually hit just the plus button and you go into a free roam mode where you can just drive around like the maps, the worlds. So it's actually kind of cool. I did a little bit of that. I haven't done too much of it yet. Excuse me. So I kind of just drove along, like you just basically going along the tracks, but then you can obviously go off course and just kind of explore. And I did that. And I came up to, like, if you've played Mario games, you come up to like there's a like blue. It has just like a P, like a letter P as in Paul on it. And if I found one of those, I was like, oh, what's that? So I hit it, and then it just kind of gave me like a mini kind of course along the world I was in right now, to kind of just get these blue coins. And I did that, and then I just got like, I think I unlocked like a costume or a new vehicle or something like that. So looks like there's little things, like little secrets like that. You can kind of do like a little mini game, and you might be able to unlock other things within the game. There's a lot of characters already unlocked. I'm not sure how many at the start, but as I'm going through, I'm unlocking more characters and kind of just variants of. I've only been using Luigi right now, but I've actually unlocked 2 other costume of him right now as I was playing. I think I'm I always started the 50cc, 100 or 150, and I think 200 are all the different races when you're doing the Grand Prix. So I've only started on the 50cc, and I'll just kind of go through and gold all those before I move up in the speed. So I was able to do that, and just kind of like I said, you either unlock a costume, or you unlock a person, or you unlock a vehicle as you finish these cups. So I'm assuming you can do that with the tour mode too. I don't know. It's like I said, I haven't played that one yet, but I know I've heard a lot of people really like that tour mode. So I'll have to see what that's all about. I saw that it's something about an endurance mode. So I don't know if you like doing one giant race the whole way, but I'll have to check it out at some point. But just give me one second.
So the reason I put and I wasn't saying the blame is entirely on GameStop. I was saying kind of in terms of in my mind, two kids were fighting, right? But somebody threw the first punch. In my mind, GameStop threw the first punch. And the reason I say that is because the vast majority of GameStops around the country didn't have that problem. My GameStop, like what they were Nazis about, was yelling at us about carrying the bag from the bottom, because they knew that their bags were too thin, and the Nintendo Switch 2 box is heavy relatively, and so they didn't want anybody dropping, right, or having their Nintendo Switch 2 like tear the bag out and hit the deck right inside the store. So I also didn't pre-order. I think I made like some tepid attempts to. I didn't really try, and like as soon as I saw I couldn't get one pre-order wise, I was just like, okay, whatever. What's weird is I went to the store that day to get a PlayStation 5 Pro, because the state of play was that night, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. I want to like be like fully in the FOMO and zeitgeist, and so I went to the store, and there was a relatively short line outside of it. Right, there was like 10 people, and so I went in the store, and I said, hey, and I asked the people in the line as I went by. It's like, are you guys in line for the Nintendo Switch 2? This is the day before it was launching, by the way. And I was like, why are people in line? Like, it's a midnight launch. Like, why are you guys in line at like 3 p.m. the day before it launches? So I went inside the store, and I said, hey, I'm not here for the Switch 2. So first of all, the guy said, well, regardless of whether you're here for the Switch 2, you have to wait in the line. And I'm like, what? So I went out to my car, and I went onto like my Target app and my Walmart app, and I found a PlayStation 5 Pro at Target. They claimed it was going to be ready for 2 hours, which is a typical thing for electronics. And I said, okay, they'll probably have it ready in less than 2 hours, but it's not going to be ready right now. I'll just go over there and hang out, and if I don't get it before the state of play starts, I'll watch it right in the car. So I was driving out of the parking lot, and I look at the line as I pass by, and I'm like, whoa, that line is like moving 3 times faster than I thought it would. They're like down to like 50%. So as I'm about to drive out of the lot, and I'm thinking, I wheel over. I was like, okay, I'll go stand in the line. I'll see. And so I walked up. They had a little sign in the door. I said, look, I'm just going to read your sign about like the process. And the sign didn't actually have what was going on entirely with it, like how they were handling it. And I said, so what are people doing? Like, are you guys taking money now? And he was like, yes, you can order now, and you can come back for the midnight launch and pick up. And I was like, okay, well, that's super weird. Like, I didn't think you guys would be doing that. And I said, so you guys have units left over from pre-orders? He said, yes. I said, enough for everybody here in line? And he was like, he was cagey about it. He was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can say. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, they actually asked, somebody had asked that during the line at Best Buy, was that? And they're like, well, we can't say. So I was like, all right. I mean, I guess that's fair, because they don't want, they want people there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I think it's fair, but for me, I was like, okay, I'm in a small little podunk town. I was like, I don't think they would have people waiting outside, like in this small town where like literally this guy has probably went to high school with like half the people in this line, right? So I said, fine, I'll sit in line. So I went and got in line, and they had enough units. So I was just like, okay, fine, whatever, content creation, podcasting, whatever. I'll just go ahead and get one. so yeah, so then I came back at midnight for the launch. So it wasn't a very long line outside. They had the guys, and I asked the guy a couple questions when I got to the front of the line, and he was like, "Yeah, when I got here at 10 this morning, there were already people in line." And he said, "But we weren't making it was just the switch line. We weren't making everybody wait." He's like, "By 3, we said we're going to make everybody wait." And I kind of been tipped off to that because I'd been trying to get the PlayStation 5 Pro in my app, and it would not let me tag it for in-store pickup. And I'm like, "But they have 4." But I'm like, so apparently they had stopped taking orders for hardware and stuff. And I don't know if that's something that the GameStop store can pick up the phone and call and have somebody stop it on the. I don't know. I know some fast food restaurants I've seen do that on Super Bowl night. But at any rate, he said people had lined up. He said by 3, they stopped letting people come in the store. But so that was the process they were going through, and I didn't get around to asking him, well, when did you guys make that decision? Because that seems like a really weird, non-standard launch thing for you guys to do. And so I have some suspicions about what Nintendo did about this. That they only allocated less for pre-orders than the total amount they had stockpiled, deliberately to have FOMO around, because it was also super strange. Because I asked the same question, I was thinking the same thing in my mind, if people have been allowed to pre-order, why are there midnight launches? If you've pre-ordered, why can't that person just come back at 10 o'clock the next day, right, and pick theirs up? So at any rate, like I said, I came back that night to pick mine up. My GameStop was really nice. They my bag was, our bags were numbered. So it's you came in, you got your bag that was designated. I did not get a bundle. I got a regular one, which is fine. I'm not a big Mario Kart person. That I don't need one right away. Brought it home, hooked everything up. I think my big thing about the hardware, I won't get into all this stuff, but my main thing for tonight about the hardware is it still bugs me that the harness, right, the basically how they have the ports aligned inside the back side of the case of the dock still makes absolutely no sense to me in any remote realm of common sense mechanical engineering. I don't understand it. And now the way the access way is aligned for the back snap case that snaps on, the cable runs are actually at a higher point of elevation than the access thing in the back. So you actually have to I have to forcibly bend the cables, right? Because to get them to align to come out the back port. Because when I put when I had the thing sitting on the desk and I just had the cables laid and I was trying to snap the back cover on, it was constantly getting cable interference. So my point is that the natural cable lay that comes out of those ports just doesn't naturally fall to align with that lower cable access port. You have to kind of forcibly manipulate it. I'm like, guys, this makes no sense. And now there's space. There's nonsensical space between the Ethernet port and the HDMI port. And I'm like, so why did whatever. So at any rate, but I got it hooked up. I logged in. I'm still a Nintendo Switch Online member, so I need to get my Breath of the Wild free update. But all that stuff worked fine. I did pick up a Pro Controller, and the Pro Controller 2 is much nicer than the original Pro Controller. It has kind of that soft rubber for the outer casing, which just has a nicer feel to it. So that's nice. I haven't had an actual chance to play mine yet, just with all the games coverage. I know Ramon mentioned something about not being able to afford games. What I would say is, this is my personal feeling on game pricing now. I don't know. Look, anybody who's bothered or offended or upset about game pricing on the Switch 2 certainly has every right to feel that way. My personal feeling is since that announcement has gone down, there's been a lack of clarity on what it really means and how Nintendo is going to handle it. And what I would say from the games that I've picked that I want to buy, none of those games are anywhere near an $80 price point, right? Bravely Default HD Remaster is $40, right? Kunitsugami, which is a game that just came out last year, is $40. Fast Fusion, which is one of the games at the top of my roster that I want to get, is $15. So it may play out that depending on what your interests are, that variable rate pricing may be something that actually works in your favor, because the games that you want are interested in. And on Nintendo Switch 2, I'm probably going to be interested in smaller games, because I have other hardware to play games on that need more muscle, right? I wouldn't pick Switch 2 to play a game that mattered as much to me. So there may be opportunities for your economy to scale differently, right? In the types of games that you might be interested in. That's not a guarantee, but what I'm saying is I don't necessarily know that I would fall off the cliff, right, out of concern that taking the perspective that like every game on the Switch 2 that you're interested in is going to be even a $70 game, right? Because we just don't know right now. It may come out that way, but it also may not. Of course, Donkey Kong Bonanza drops next month, and that will be a $70 game. So, I'm also not saying it's all roses and Tiffany couplings by any means either.
Yeah, price is kind of all over the place right now with stuff, but yeah, unfortunately, it's the way it is. But yeah,
I'd say that's the biggest negative is I don't think anybody cared about Nintendo Switch 2 hardware reviews. I think what's really consumer damaging is the fact that there were no game reviews available. Like, so when people came home, that you would kind of know what were the top games, right, that people had reviewed that you should go after. So that's probably the thing that's least consumer friendly right out of the whole situation.
Yeah. And just going back to being in line from earlier, so I had mentioned there was like 40 or so people in front of me before we started moving. Well, actually, before that, there was probably like another, I don't know, 20 or 30 behind me as they, the employees were going down, and they actually waited in the back of the line for like maybe another 10, 15 minutes after they had got to the end, because there's people still coming in. So yeah, they had plenty of units there. So yeah, it was just interesting. And even once I got my stuff and I had walked out, and I saw like a couple people there that I had noticed from before. I had seen that the line had gotten even longer. So and looks like they were getting their units too. So I think they had plenty of stuff too.
Yeah, there were a handful of people. Like, again, I'm in a small town. There were a handful of people who lined up and were able to get units after me. I was also able to get accessories, so it's not like the place had been drained. Like, my accessories that I bought. And I did buy an extra micro SD express card, 512 gigabyte, and I was able to get that. I was strongly suspecting that those would all be sold out. Because they would have gone with bundles or people who had gotten theirs before me, but they hadn't. And I was able to buy a Pro controller too. I think the only thing they were out of that I asked about that I was not able to get was they did not have a Joy-Con charge. What's also super funny to me, just because I'm old and I don't remember, I completely forgot that a Joy-Con comes in the box. So I'm like, if I had remembered a Joy-Con came in the box, I would not have bought a Pro controller too. But it's the better controller, and eventually you're going to need it anyway. So I'm like, fine, whatever.
Do you mean just like the charging base, like just where you put the?
Yeah, the little thing that you snap that you take the Joy-Cons off of and snap on to have as a regular controller.
Like a controller. Okay, I see what you're
saying. There's a Joy-Con charge that is the same thing, but so the one that comes in the box doesn't recharge the Joy-Cons.
Okay. I see.
And I had a Joy-Con charge on my original Switch. So, but yeah, it's fun.
Nice. Yeah, that's exciting that you've gotten two consoles now. So you're jumping back in. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense just because it's a newer one. So you want to do that. Yeah, I was thinking of getting a Pro controller, but I was like, I mean, I heard now, yeah, it is better than the first one. I still have my original one, and I have a bunch of other ones that I had bought, throughout the years.
Yeah,
like especially
your original one will work with the Switch too.
Yeah, and it works. I've already tried it out, but I think just because we're running along, I'll cut it off here. I had a few other games that I had played since then, but maybe if DB's on tomorrow too, we can talk a little bit more about our experiences and just gameplays and stuff like that. So that is it for tonight. Tomorrow we got 5 showcases that we'll go through. So we got the IO Interactive Showcase, Wholesome Direct, Future Game Show, Xbox Showcase will be tomorrow afternoon, I believe. And then I think right after that is the PC Gaming Show, which we'll get to those. And then once again, we might have some, if we have time, we'll have a little bit more Nintendo Switch 2 talk. Game Logic, anything before we head out here?
No, not at all.
All right. Thank you, everybody who stopped by. Ramon, here down under, and Nate. Let's see what else we have. Jessica, I believe.
We had Priscilla in the chat earlier.
Yeah, Priscilla, Immortal Black. Thank you all for coming down. Retro, the Family Man Gamer. I like that name. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please come back tomorrow night. We'll be on at our normal time at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're on a little bit later today, but it's a Saturday, so we can stay up late, a little late, I think. Tomorrow we'll be back at our normal time and normal day. We'll go through those other showcases and directs, talk about a little bit more about Switch, possibly, if we have time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good night.